From the Denver Broncos Media Center, welcome to Broncos Country Tonight.
Welcome to Broncos Country Tonight as the Broncos get their second win of the season, moved to 2-1 after beating the San Francisco 49ers 11-10. And though that might sound like scoregami, as in never heard of that score, it's actually had one other time. 2008, I think, is the last time that happened. But in the end, a defensive battle. Lot to like about what the Broncos defense ultimately were able to do. A lot to like about what the special teams did. And I think what you ultimately have to lean on, Ben, is in the end, the offense put together the one drive they really ultimately needed to have.
Yeah, when they absolutely had to have it, both the defense with the safety and then the offense with the game clincher came through. And I think that's it. The defense came through several times, getting the game-ending turnover as well. I think there's a lot to like about this team. I think that certain aspects of the team are just not where you wanted it to be when you hit the season. The defense is running. The special teams is jogging, and the offense is crawling. And in terms of development, it looks like the offense is going to take a little longer. I went and did a little research last night because I was curious as to other quarterbacks with good pedigrees adapting to this offense and how long it took. And it usually took about half a season. I mean, Aaron Rodgers in his fourth game threw up 400 yards. It was against a bad defense, but then he went right back to having some problems, and it took him about half a season mark in 2019 with the same OC, and LaFleur is calling the plays, but Nathaniel Hackett was the OC. It took Aaron Rodgers about half a season to get there. It took Matt Ryan almost a full year to get there. Down with Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta. They both statistically had their worst seasons their first year in this offense, and if you gave it time to grow, they grew in it. Does that mean Russ is going to grow into it? I don't know, but that just some historical markers to kind of look at. Russ is actually outpacing Aaron Rodgers in his first three games in this offense.
It's funny because somebody on this show actually brought that up during training camp on a show, and you might have dismissed that very premise, but that's okay. We can digress.
I don't even remember it.
I'm just glad that you're on board with the same thing I brought up, a month ago.
I don't even remember this.
But anyways, let's go back to this game. So specifically with the offense, there are some concerns. And you did hope it would be a little further along. What can they do in the process of this moment right now? Because again, games are being played. You can't really take any weeks off. You're getting ready to face a very desperate 0-3 Raiders team. So what can you do in the process of right now to sort of further things along quickly?
I think you need to get core competency mastery, your basics. I mean, if you're on offense, you've got to have some money stuff that's reliable. You got to be able to have 5 or 6 plays that on third down, that you can execute those plays. You're going to have to lean heavily on the run game to get there. You're going to have Javonte and Melvin out there probably a little bit more than you want, maybe even a little bit more Mike Boone than you want. Melvin's got to hang on to the football. Javonte's got to stop getting stuffed. He gets the big runs and stuff, but he's got to stop getting stuffed on early down runs and be able to use that ability he has to break tackles to get 3-4 yards. Can't get 1 or 2 on first down, get a 16-yarder, and then claim, hey, look, I'm averaging 9 a carry when really you got 16 and 2. So it's something you need to. It's a few things you need to clean up. On the offensive line side, I thought they played mostly well. Garrett Bowles didn't have the best game that he's ever had, but I thought most of the offensive line played well. I don't think there's much to talk about there. The receivers got to hang on to the football. Too many drops in that game. I went back and looked at it. It was 6 drops in that game.
Well, I mean, the Jerry Jeudy deep pass wasn't a drop.
I'm not even counting that one.
All right.
Saubert had 1 hit him in the hands that dropped. Jeudy had 2 or 3 hit him in the hands that dropped. I think Cortland even dropped 1 in that game. They short-handed
Cortland had 1.
Dropped 1. And that just doesn't happen. So you can't have the drops. You just can't have them. The running backs, you expected a little bit. Javonte had a pair of drops. But you just, you have to be able to hang. If it hits you in the hands, you got to catch it. That's just the rule.
Well, right. And so when the Broncos, especially because we talked about inevitably, offensively, you'd hope to not work with these kind of margins, but at least in the short term, you are going to work with these kinds of margins. And I got a lot of people, of course, hitting me up saying, oh, boy, this looks very familiar, really good defense, subpar offense, and somehow the defense is going to have to carry this offense. But the whole point of bringing Russell Wilson is for not for long. The whole idea is that eventually the offense will catch up.
Yeah, and it's a little bit different because this offense isn't some kind of roller coaster where you don't know what's coming next.
Absolutely.
They're just not executing. Like it's not poor play calls. There's not, game you want to look at last night's games. There's no play calling, game management, game decisions, Nathaniel Hackett errors. It's just the offense not executing. And whether that's receivers not catching the ball, the quarterback not making the right read, or not knowing where a guy was supposed to be on a particular play, you've got to clean those things up. You might be able to get away with it with the Raiders. I wouldn't count on it. But then you got, a short week against the Colts, I think, after that, and you're not going to be able to get away with it against them. The Colts record doesn't reflect how good they are right now.
Yeah, well, and again, they got shut out against the Jags, and guess what? They turned around, they beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Mm-hmm. So it tells you, again, any given Sunday, anything can really happen. A couple more things on the offense before we switch over to the defense. Play of the game for me, I guess you could almost give this a little bit of a tie, but it's on that last drive. The first one was the third down conversion to Kendall Hinton. Just what an incredible play. Scramble drill, things the Broncos did historically and struggled at, to be able to find a spot, come back to the ball for Kendall. Plenty of space beyond the marker. That way they can get the first down. The other one, of course, is Russ scrambling, something that up to this point he had not been, maybe, I guess, reluctant feels strong, but that he hadn't really been doing it. So I like to see those two plays. Cortland, of course, came up with some big plays, and of course with the running game, you saw some nice things. But in the end, those are the two standout plays on offense for me.
I think another play that stood out, I would agree with those. One that stood out for me would be the comeback. The back shoulder to Cortland, going deep and going to the back shoulder.
You were talking about that all lot. Yeah.
It looks like Russ and Court finally have that down. And that's a building block. Russ and Judy got to get on the same page. They do. They're not on the same page. They need to get on the same page. But Russ and Court are on the same page. And we've seen that over the last two games where he just keeps feeding Cortland Sutton the ball. Cortland can't be stopped, whether it's Stingley, whether it's any number of the Niners corners that were out there covering him. He couldn't be stopped. So it's good to see that they've got that connection. You just need to get that. And we got to get KJ Hamler out there a little bit more.
Yeah,
we got
to
get that deep speed. Broncos have got to get some vertical speed that scares somebody, or else everybody's just going to stay back in too deep and force Russ to try to eat him up underneath. And that's the book on how to beat Russ.
And it becomes self-fulfilling, right? Because you're trying to work with efficient, quick passes. Mm-hmm. But in the efficient, quick passes, if everybody's playing up, they're not afraid of the deep ball, well, then you're just going to be moving the ball much like they were against the 49ers. All right, let's go to the defensive side of the ball, because that had a lot of fireworks. Not only did you win the turnover battle 3, you also got a safety. Jimmy Garoppolo helped with that, but you would have had a pick 6 if that wasn't the case. It's the rare occasion, right, where a safety actually helped a team. Mm-hmm. I don't think we'll ever see that ever again, but the defense was just swarming. And you know, the thing about it is you have to have a lot of patience and belief in what you're doing as a team to do that. And I think that there's historical proof over the last several years where the defense didn't really believe in what the offense was doing, and they eventually got bogged down, exhausted through the process. I don't know if that's going to be the case because of Russ.
It isn't the case right now, I'll tell you that. I was in that locker room last night right afterwards. They were celebrating. While the fans are outside melting down, the Broncos have a share of first in the AFC West, 2 home, they're undefeated at home, and a defense that believes that its offense is getting better each game. I mean, this wasn't, I've been in there before when it's like, oh no, the offense is okay, and they're looking, and you can see the dead look in their eyes as they're like, telling you that, that wasn't it at all. You had guys going up encouraging other people. Justin Simmons was up there encouraging, offense. He was up there, Court's the greatest, getting up in there, we had guys looking at Twitter. Jerry Judy's in there looking at Twitter, and you see him like just getting mad at people that are melting down about the Broncos. This is a big dub. We're going to build off it. There is a sense of optimism in that locker room. Whether the fan base doesn't have it, the players do. So they feel like the little things are finally starting to click, and those little things will build to medium things, which builds to big things, and then it starts to look explosive.
And that's a point that I want to get to here before we get out of here, is that the management of the game, the little things, significantly better than what we saw in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, the new kind of efficiency expert kind of talked Nathaniel Hackett out of going for it on a 4th down. I would have gone for it, but if you hadn't got it, you left it deep in territory. Probably would have put the game out of reach if the Niners even kick a field goal there. Might have put the game out of reach. So they did. They played the field position game. They ended up coming out on top because of it. So it ended up being the right move. I don't know if hindsight justification is it. I would have gone for it, but it looks like that process, whatever that process they've implemented there, it looks like it's working.
I mean, and we heard from Russell Wilson. They spent all week really practicing, getting the plays in, getting out of the huddle quickly, getting to the line.
Well, we saw that with the opening drive. They went into a sugar huddle.
That's right.
They just went, and I was like, well, this might be a bit of an overcorrection here. And they went 3 and out, but it's still, it was good to see like, hey, we have a sense of urgency right now. We're going to show that right off the bat.
But you've said for a while you'd love to see the Broncos go a little more up tempo, especially at altitude.
I would. If it's not working, then you need to scrap it. But
sure.
It is one of those things where you want to come out and have you need to get at least 1 first down in your first drive. You ideally want to score, right? But at least get 1 first down. You don't want to go 3 and out, especially at home. It takes the crowd out of it, because then your opponent's going to come up and get out there. The crowd's a little, we went 3 and out.
Which is kind of what happened.
You want the crowd fired up. You want to keep them engaged on that. Try to get the penalties, get get them 3 and out in their first series. So I'd like to see more of it. I'd like to see some tempo. I'd like to see them come out at halftime and do that. I'd like to see them script a second half drive where they come out at the second half and then you put the foot on the brake and come out and get that quick score like that and put somebody on their heels and set a tone for the second half. Haven't seen anybody try that methodology yet. Just something I'd like to see.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's the whole adjustments, and usually that's a little overblown, the whole adjustments thing. But yeah, I mean, you would like to see that in response. I mean, overall, I think the Broncos in the second half have been the better team. Almost, I mean, in all three games. I mean, the Seattle game, they were definitely the better team in the second half. They came up short. They had dug themselves in a big hole. And then, of course, they fumbled twice in the goal line, which was significant. And then they were definitely the better team in the second half of the Houston Texans game. And they were the better second half team last night against the 49ers. So it's one of those things like, you've got to play a full 60 minutes. And I know that's cliche, but in the end, what they were able to do and get away with to a certain extent against these last two teams, I think you put it perfect. When you go up against an offense that is going to move the ball, that is going to find success in the red zone, and that is going to put up some points, you're going to find yourself in a bit of a hole if the offense continues to sputter. You've got to find some things you can lean on right now. Like you can't, the whole thing's a work in progress, but right now you got to find some things to lean on that you can build on.
Yeah, and you need some offensive benchmarks. Defenses, you know what the defense is capable of, but the offense needs some benchmarks that they know they can go to. When they need a money play, they know they can go to those benchmarks and get that conversion and get that play. That's what they need to be working on this week as they head to Las Vegas, hopefully LOSS Vegas.
All right, good stuff. The Broncos are tied for first in the AFC West. We'll continue to break it down for the remainder of the week and get into a preview against the Raiders. For Benjamin Allbright, I'm Ryan Edwards. Thanks for watching Broncos Country Tonight.
Denver's going to win! You can stand up and salute in Denver, and you got the world champions that live in your town.